we have to protect what we have. There's so much outside stressors that's happening, you know, with runoff, pesticides, you know, now we got sunscreens.
Now, we do provide complimentary reef safe sunscreen, guys. I got a bunch up here by me. We got a bunch down below in the main cabin as well.
Tourism, there's a lot of things that's pressuring the corals, and you know, it makes me worry, because for me, I want to be sure that, you know, coming from a fishing family, it's very important that my kids grow up the same way that we did, you know, and be able to utilize our resources and also take care of them, because pretty soon, without the corals here, especially with the bleaching that's going to be happening that we're anticipating, you know, that could coral reef collapse could happen. And with that happening, the fish won't have a home. They'll end up moving away, and you know, there'll be no resources for everybody to enjoy.
That's Adam Wong, and I'm Brian Nielsen, and that's my wife Eva and daughter Mia.
Aloha, I'm Luna Kikoa, enjoying a day at the beach with my wife Kahale and Keiki na ulu, Ke'ahe, and Mahina. E ho'omau I ke ko'a. In Hawaiian, this means preserving our coral reefs.
Adam, Luna, and I are just 3 of the many people across Hawaii committed to saving coral for our keiki and for all future generations.
If you've been in Hawaii for any time at all, you already know that coral reefs are the very foundation of life in the ocean. They're living animals that support many other creatures.
And our way of life in both the sea and on land. Hawaii's coral reefs, like reefs around the world, are under siege. They're on the verge of being lost forever. This means unless each of us does our part to save coral, we risk losing these beautiful, productive, and fragile ecosystems.
As Brian said, to save coral, we all need to malama them and think about what we do in the ocean and on land, and whether our actions are pono. We'd like you to meet all kinds of people and groups around Hawaii who are making saving coral their mission.
Look like a funnel. So as the surf hits this wall, goes out, and it comes through that opening.
Please listen to their stories. From their words and their actions, we can all learn about saving coral. Ultimately, it is about our children, and their grandchildren.
Hawaii without coral is not a Hawaii as we know it. So it's fitting we first return to Adam, who spends a lot of time talking to Keiki about saving coral.
The water, the way our water flows, the aquifer, right? We're surrounded by water, period. We're surrounded by water. We have many, many corals, many fishes that live in Hawaii. So, common sense, we better protect that, right? Because if we don't know that, Hawaii not going to be Hawaii. We're not going to have the beautiful surf spots, the beautiful beaches. You guys not going to be able to go and enjoy and do that kind of stuff.
Now, the bottom is alive. Coral is a very delicate animal.
If we don't take care, then we're going to end up with nothing, okay? A coral reef has all these working parts, okay? Just like one car. One car needs gas, needs spark, needs a carburetor, needs tires, needs all that stuff. If you get one car, no more tires, what? Where are you going? Nowhere. You're not going to go nowhere. If you get one car, minus the gas line, where are you going? Nowhere, okay? Just like on coral reef, you got to have all these pieces that can work, make this puzzle work.
Because they get rid of a lot of the invasive algae, which means it's really for more native species to grow.
Spot on, bro. Spot on. You're taking out the corals. What's going to happen? Going to fall down, okay? You guys' whole tower going to fall down on the ground. Going to be dust. We're going to end up with coral reef collapse. And this is what coral reef collapse looks like, okay? It's that simple of just pulling out one of the key players on our coral reef. You can end up with something like this. And this is what we want to stay away from, because coral reefs has a hard time recovering once we enter this stage.
Reef education happens in classrooms.
And many, many organizations and even commercial tour companies are joining efforts to save coral.
For us, it is people like you that make a big difference, and you will be sharing.
You make the difference, yes, absolutely.
We live in paradise.
The Kahalu'u Bay Education Center on the Hawaii Island is a program of the Kahala Center. They educate dozens, even hundreds of visitors every day.
And because of what's happening to the reef here, they're taking simple steps to save coral in the bay while they contemplate some fairly drastic measures.
Right now, we see a bay that is being loved to death. It is in disrepair. We find that our corals are suffering. They are in decline. And Kahaluu is a bay that has more of the major stressors affecting it. Pollution runoff, cesspool areas right next to it. We have thousands of people that come to the bay every year. Some of the stressors like cesspool conversion or pollution runoff, climate change, are very difficult to mitigate immediately. But with sunscreen, we can do it immediately.
Chemical sunscreens that are in the water.
When the corals are spawning, look at days to close, and also look at carrying capacity on all of our bays that are being loved to death. And if we can work together, and I think the formula is just that: the federal, state, local, community, families of the land working together to heal here, Kahaluu Bay, or in different areas, for instance, Hanauma Bay. It is all of us, because I believe together we can make a difference. If we can find some successes, and then we can share it with other bays, and hopefully we will have a Hawaii island where people will continue to come and enjoy it, and also our children will have a place that they can really appreciate and respect.
I think everyone here is aware that last year the state of Hawaii passed legislation banning the sale of certain chemicals in sunscreens that have been shown to be harmful to coral reef ecosystems when they're present in the water in large concentrations. So in particular, we designed a survey to try to better understand what's the prevalence of these banned chemicals in sunscreens that are currently being used on beaches in Hawaii. So it was both to try to understand what would be the potential impacts of the ban once it goes into effect, and then also to understand how aware are people and to inform education outreach strategies. See, where are people learning about the information, and are there other ways that we can get this information out?
Good morning. You guys snorkeled already, right? I'm sorry? Did you guys get in the water already? No. No. I might be too late, but we're just asking everybody to try to use only sunscreens that have zinc or titanium oxide. It's been recognized for generations that the coral reefs are the foundation of our life in the islands. And it's not just economics about visitors. It's about fishing. It's about surfing. Without these reefs, and we could lose them, Hawaii would be very, very different. But there's so many impacts right now. We've got to, that's our challenge, is we're just asking each person to make that personal choice themselves. Protect yourself, but do it in the right way.
Many weekends you can find a sunscreen swap somewhere in the islands. In addition to only using reef-safe sunscreens, you can protect yourself with clothing like rash guards, hats, and simply staying in the shade.
We're excited to see so many people and groups focusing on this. Every little step will contribute to helping save our coral. Even our millions of visitors are getting educated about pono practices.
Many of the people and companies that host visitors are signing on to the Coral Pledge. This is a concerted and organized effort to inform as many guests as possible about why it's so important to do their part saving coral.
The Coral Pledge is straightforward. Commercial tour operators and other enterprises just agree to share simple, common sense steps to avoid injuring or stressing corals.
Every day of every week, thousands of people hop on board boats and buses to get in the water to experience Hawaii's dazzling underwater vistas. Before the introduction of the Coral Pledge, many Hawaii companies were already informing folks.
Imagine how wonderful it would be if there was pono fishing on our coral reefs, if people stopped walking on them, sitting on them, touching them. If everyone understood that Hawaii's coral reefs are not only the foundation of the ocean, but fundamental to our economy. No corals, a lifeless ocean, and no reason for people to come to Hawaii to enjoy them.
One of the goals of Disney's Animal Programs Department is to actually educate our guests about environmental issues. So Rainbow Reef is a unique experience for our guests. It's a man-made snorkel lagoon. It was designed and built to look and feel like a real coral reef. So guests can snorkel in there, learn about coral reefs and the fish inside the reefs, and give them a feel for it before they actually go out and snorkel in the wild.
The corals that we have, although they are not real, we treat everything in there, especially the corals, even though they're not real, like they are real. It helps us to remember that corals are living animals, and if we step on them, if we kick them, it's very damaging and it's destructive, and so we do not want to do that. So we ask if you can please not step on the rocks, and if you cannot step on the corals. You just want to stay swimming.
Bethany said that the girls didn't want to touch the reef because they had heard her say they shouldn't step on the reef, and they were very, very careful to keep their feet off of the reef. So the message does get through. I think especially to the young people, because they take it very seriously, that this is their future.
All right, guys, we're here. We made it. Beautiful, historic Kealakekua Bay. This is the famous site where Captain James Cook of the British Royal Navy made landfall in the winter of 1779. For your own safety and the health of the reef, guys, we ask you guys, please stay off the bottom. Don't touch anything. Don't stand up anywhere. And do not climb ashore at the Captain Cook Monument. Like I said, your own safety, but also the health of the reef.
We've been in business almost 50 years now, and we see around 60,000 or so passengers through our boats. We definitely are aware of the impact that we all make, and that we need to try and do our best with what we have to keep it as good as possible. But with things like global warming, it definitely gets to a point where sometimes it's bigger than what we can do here, and so we do as much as we can to support all those types of efforts, single-use plastic, all that type of stuff. The boats run on biodiesel. I have a son, and so everything we do, you know, we think about that being our big reason. So, you know, the next generation is absolutely going to be the ones that have the real next step at being able to fix the problem. But yeah, absolutely optimistic in the sense that we have lots of options for doing it. So it's definitely something where it's real. So there's as much a worry as there is an opportunity.
There was as many as 18 when we first got out here. We would say it's definitely too many. It's the place was created in 1978 because it was such a unique kind of example of a coral reef ecosystem. It's in the middle of the channel here, offshore, and it's actually smaller, believe it or not, than Hanauma Bay inside of this area. So to put that many boats with some of them 150 passengers or more is a lot, right? You're looking at sometimes probably 12 to 1,500 people in here at one time. And so that has an effect, and we can't necessarily measure all of those effects exactly, but we have been able to look at what happens to some of the reef predators that are more mobile, and we found clear signs that once there's more than 12 boats, 50% of them or more are displaced from the area, particularly the bluefin trevally or the omilu. This is a premier tourist destination. It's advertised as such. These companies depend on being able to take people out here to sell their trips on a trip to Molokini, and they sell it as kind of a pristine, out of its way nature experience. And so we did do a study looking at social carrying capacity as well. It was found that about 50% of the people felt that once there was 12 boats or more, or somewhere between 12 to 15, depending on the size of the boats, that was too many, that they felt that was crowded. They get that intuitively and philosophically. In fact, they'll tell you they're some of the best stewards of the marine environment because it's their livelihood and their business. And there's certainly some truth to that, in that people go on these trips, they're educated, they're supervised, and we hope that if they're taught the right things, that every time they go snorkeling on their own throughout their trip, that they're following that advice and behaving better as a result of it. So there's a lot of benefit that can come from the tour industry. It's hard to see yourself as a direct part of the problem, right? And although a lot of them privately will agree that it's crowded and it's chaotic out here, as a group, they don't want to say that. I don't know, it's a difficult dynamic, but I do think they get it. They just haven't been super willing to concede that fact, particularly for Molokini at this point. Overall, I think natural ecosystems are resilient. They can adapt, they can adjust. We just have to do what we can to give them the space to do that. So, you know, I'm optimistic. I mean, there's no doubt things are going to be different. The reefs are not going to be what we grew up used to. But corals should survive, and reefs should continue to adapt and adjust, even as other things change, as long as we address what we can from local stressors. And fishing, particularly heavy fishing of herbivore fish that play a critical role on the reef. And because of their life history, they're not able to adapt to heavy fishing pressure as well as other species of fish might be able to. And so hopefully we can do a better job of that. We can address land-based pollution and better control sedimentation, set up better natural coastal ecosystems to filter that stuff out.
Russell pretty much summed up the Coral Pledge. Our visitor industry is front and center and absolutely critical to saving coral. We invite tour operators and anyone who has direct contact with people going into the ocean to swim, snorkel, surf, kayak, stand-up paddle, fish or boat, to sign the pledge and incorporate its simple, straightforward tips into information and education presentations.
Saving coral is similar to the concept of it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take all of us doing our parts to ensure beautiful reefs for the future. Across the state, there are numerous projects underway to give our coral reefs a helping hand. One is the State Anuenue Coral Nursery.
What we're doing here is fast-growing coral colonies, Hawaiian coral colonies. We're only growing Hawaiian coral. And we're experimenting with a variety of species, but we're sticking primarily to the reef-building corals. We have really good reefs that are degrading, and we have corals in our harbors that provide us with a unique source of coral material, because we don't want to be moving corals from natural reefs to natural reefs because it impacts one reef to benefit another.
And what Norton's doing right now is taking a picture of the coral prior to cutting it so we can see what coral we're working with, and we can reverse course prior to all these frags and know what exact colony we took.
Because this hasn't really been done before, we needed a place where we could easily monitor the status of these outplants, look for any problems that may occur, check their growth rates, their natural growth rates. Remember that we're fast growing them in the coral nursery. But once we put them out into the wild, they go back to the same growth rates every other coral in Hawaii is growing at, which on average is about 1 centimeter a year. It's amongst the slowest growth rates of corals anywhere in the world. And those slow growth rates make it very hard for reefs to recover naturally from human impacts. So that's why we're giving them a little bit of help. When we transplant corals out into natural reef environments, we have to acclimate them, because in the coral nursery, they're basically, it's like being in a 5-star hotel. They're given all the best food, the best lighting, the best water conditions. They're given lots of tender loving care, and together this allows these corals to grow at a fast rate. Once we put them back into natural waters, what ends up happening is that growth rate slows down, and we have to slowly acclimate them back to the not pristine water that we have surrounding our shallow water reef environments. HIMB is the only scientific reserve in the state. So it has protected area status, very limited activities, there's no fishing, which means there's no trolling and stuff in here.
HIMB is the University of Hawaii's Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology on Coconut Island and Kaneohe Bay. It too is doing cutting-edge research and projects to help our coral reefs along.
It's also one of the sites of Hawaii's first Coral Palooza, held in the summertime to celebrate World Oceans Day. Billed as the largest one-day active reef restoration project, It gave Dave and his team another opportunity to put some coral modules from the nursery into a protected natural environment.
Back in the classroom on Maui, Adam Wong's fishing class gets a stark but comic reminder of all the perils coral reefs face.
You can see the decline of fish, like the lobster holes that I used to go to, the moi holes, the hole, the kumu, they're not there, okay? They've been displaced, we're overfishing them, something's happening, okay? So we're getting a lot of reduction in these species. So in this comic, you get one kid, he can go talk to an owner of an aquarium store. So what the kid is saying, he's saying, "Mister, what do I need to create a realistic marine environment?" Okay? So what he's doing, he's trying to build his aquarium at home. What the owner says to him, he said, in order to be realistic, you got to get agricultural runoff, coastal overdevelopment, unprocessed sewage, and depleted fish species. What he pretty much saying is that if you wanted to have a realistic marine environment and you wanted to create that on your own, this is all the stuff that we're facing right now. On Maui, we're facing runoff. We're facing overdevelopment, okay? We're facing overfishing. These are all issues that's happening within the communities, that's happening on our coral reefs.
Our keiki are the best hope for reversing course and ultimately for saving coral. From young ages, they're learning about the threats to our reefs. Much like nature builds reefs, we adults must provide a solid foundation of understanding, appreciation, and malama to pass on. It's what I want for my keiki. I also want them to understand that not only is coral, or in Hawaiian, ko'a, really important for the health of the ocean, ko'a is key to our culture.
Dad, how are coral reefs part of our Hawaiian culture?
Oh, good question, Nolu. There's a lot of places where coral is in our Hawaiian culture, starting with the Kumulipo, right? So it's a creation chant, the genealogy of the Hawaiian people. And corals is one of the first things born. So because it's one of the first born, it's our ancestor, our kupuna, right? So it's one of our connections to the coral, is that connection back to the resources. And the corals are the foundation of the coral reef ecosystem.
And now?
And now, you remember Ko'olave?
Yep.
Yeah, so remember when we went to the fishing koa?
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember seeing?
I think coral?
Yeah, so there was some coral on top of that. And what about on the alalo when we walked out?
More coral.
Yeah, there was coral on that too, right? So we still use corals today in our cultural practices and ceremonies.
I also want Mia to grow up to know from a very young age that everything we do or don't do will help determine if Hawaii has healthy, vibrant coral reefs for eons to come. When you think about everything you've heard and learned today, it's not terribly difficult. Yes, we'll all have to make some tough decisions, but in the long run, we must take steps to protect, preserve, and perpetuate Hawaii's coral reefs. Our way of life depends on saving coral.
Our call to action for you begins with reminders from the people you've seen and heard already. We encourage everyone to take the coral pledge. Aloha.
People don't sometimes realize it just looks like a rock to them, but corals are live animals, so it's very important to them to not step on the reef or touch them. Please don't feed the fish, because that changes their behavior.
We can address land-based pollution and better control sedimentation, set up better natural coastal ecosystems to filter that stuff out. You know, it's a slow, painful process, but I think the more we can do that, the more likely reefs can adapt and adjust over time.
It's still something that I love to be able to share with people to see, because no matter if you've seen it before or not, at this point we can still see it and we still have a chance to help make sure that someone else might see it after.
Sunscreens won't reduce all the damage that's happening to our reefs. There's problems with sedimentation and ocean warming and acidification, but one straw that we can take off the camel's back, I believe, is one swimmer at a time, one snorkeler at a time, one surfer at a time, is the sunscreen. The sunscreens that we now use, modern sunscreens, have some toxicity problems.
Corals are living animals, and Please do not step on them. Avoid stepping on them. Float as much as possible. Look for areas that are sandy if you need to stand. I truly believe we have a chance, and this right now is our time to do the right thing. All of us together. Put aside politics. Put aside those things that we see that have not worked, and find those things that will work. And we'll work together. All of us here make Hawaii. And my grandpa always said, if you live Hawaii, you love Hawaii, you are Hawaiian.